Have you ever wondered what an Amish woman actually commits to on her wedding day? Not the ceremony, not the dress, not the community meal, but the specific rules that begin the morning after the wedding and do not end until the day she dies? No divorce. The first and most foundational rule of Amish marriage is that it cannot be ended. There is no divorce. There is no legal separation that permits remarriage while both partners are living. The vow made before God and the congregation is binding for the duration of both partners' lives, not as a strong preference for permanence, but as an absolute. A woman who pursues civil divorce loses her community. She is excommunicated. She is shunned by the people she has known since childhood. The option is technically available. The civil courts do not answer to the Amish bishop, but the cost is the complete destruction of every social relationship the woman has ever had. Submission. The Amish wife's submission to her husband is rooted in Ephesians 5:22. 2-3 wives submit to their husbands as to the Lord, and the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. This is not a metaphor, it is an operating principle. What submission means in daily life is not that the wife has no voice. Researchers consistently note that Amish women wield significant practical influence within their households. What it means is that when the household reaches an impasse, the husband's position prevails. His word is final. Without revision, no birth control. The Amish do not use birth control, a deeply held theological conviction that children are a blessing from God and that restricting their arrival interferes with divine will. The practical consequence is that children begin arriving quickly after marriage and continue at intervals the community accepts as normal. The average Amish family has 6 to 8 children. A woman who marries at 20 may spend 3 decades pregnant, nursing, or managing small children simultaneously while also cooking 3 meals daily, preserving food, sewing every garment, and managing a garden. The household grows with each child. The demand grows with it. The white kapp. On the morning after her wedding, an Amish woman changes the color of her prayer covering. Before marriage, she wore a black kapp, the head covering that signals unmarried status in most Amish communities. After marriage, she wears white. This is not a one-time symbolic gesture made on the wedding day and then retired to a drawer. It is a daily practice that continues without interruption for the rest of her life. The white kapp goes on every morning. It is worn throughout the day, during cooking, during field work, during community visits, during church services, during the evening's handwork beside the stove. It is the most immediately visible signal of her married status and of her commitment to the community's standards of modesty and submission. The theological basis for head covering comes from 1 Corinthians 11, where Paul instructs that a woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. The Amish take this instruction literally and apply it consistently. An Amish woman whose head is uncovered in any public or semi-public setting is in violation of the Ordnung, and that violation is visible to everyone who sees her. The white kapp is worn every day until she is buried, often in the same dress she wore at her wedding. Stay home. Approximately 99% of Amish wives with young children are stay-at-home mothers. This is not a rule enforced through any formal mechanism. In the Ordnung, there is no written prohibition on Amish wives working outside the home. It is an expectation so deeply embedded in the community's understanding of what a wife and mother does that departure from it is virtually unknown during the years when children are in the household. The expectation begins on the wedding day and intensifies with each child that follows. The household that a new Amish wife is now responsible for managing is not a household with a dishwasher, a washing machine, a dryer, or a microwave. It is a household that runs entirely on her labor, cooking 3 full meals from scratch every day, preserving food through canning season, sewing every garment the family wears, managing the garden that supplies a significant portion of what the household eats, and caring continuously for children whose number will grow across the years. The modern framing of stay-at-home motherhood as a lifestyle choice made from a position of financial comfort does not describe the Amish situation. The Amish wife stays home because the household she manages requires her full daily presence and her full daily labor to function. If she leaves, the household stops. No ring. An Amish woman does not wear a wedding ring. This is not a personal preference or a practical accommodation to farm work. It is a rule rooted in the Ordnung's prohibition on jewelry, a prohibition that applies equally to wedding rings and to every other form of personal adornment. The Amish believe that jewelry encourages pride and individualism, the exact qualities that the community's values are designed to suppress. A wedding ring, in this framework, is not a symbol of love and commitment. It is an ornament, a visible marker of personal status that draws attention to the wearer and creates a visible distinction between married and unmarried women that the community expresses through clothing and head covering rather than through jewelry. The bare finger is not experienced by Amish women as an absence. It is simply what a married Amish woman's hand looks like. She has never worn a ring. Her mother never wore one. Her grandmother never wore one. The community has never used rings to signal marital status. And the absence of one communicates nothing within the community that the white cap and the cape dress do not already communicate clearly to anyone who knows how to read the visual language of Amish dress. The bare finger she carries on the morning after her wedding will still be bare 50 years later. No public affection. An Amish couple does not display physical affection in public. Not on their wedding day, there is no kiss at the altar, no embrace before the congregation, no public physical expression of the bond just made. Not on ordinary days, no hand-holding at the market, no embrace at the church door, no touch that any observer could see and interpret as intimate. This rule applies from the wedding day forward and does not relax with time, with familiarity, or with the deepening of the relationship that decades of shared life produce. The theological basis is the Amish understanding of modesty, the conviction that physical intimacy is private, belonging entirely to the two people involved, and that displaying it publicly is a form of vanity that draws attention to the self in ways the community's values prohibit. What the rule produces in practice is a marriage whose outward presentation to the community is consistently composed and consistently private, regardless of what the relationship is like behind closed doors. A couple who has been married for 40 years and who are deeply and genuinely attached to each other will present to their community exactly as they presented on the morning after their wedding, side by side at church, working together on the farm, sharing meals at the family table, with no visible physical expression of what they mean to each other. The affection is real. Its expression belongs only to them. His word is final. The formal authority structure of an Amish marriage places the husband at the head of the household, a position that is not merely symbolic, but that has practical consequences in the specific situations where it matters most. In the ordinary functioning of a healthy Amish marriage, this authority structure may be nearly invisible. Many Amish couples make decisions through genuine mutual consultation, with the wife's perspective consistently sought and consistently valued. Researchers who have spent time with Amish families have noted repeatedly that Amish women exercise significant influence within their households, that the formal hierarchy does not prevent the wife's voice from carrying real weight in the decisions that affect her daily life. What the hierarchy provides is a resolution mechanism for the situations where that consultation does not produce agreement. When a husband and wife cannot agree on a significant household decision, where to farm, whether to accept a particular business arrangement, how to respond to a specific community obligation, the husband's position prevails. This is not experienced by most Amish women as oppression. It is experienced as structure, a feature of the household's operating framework that prevents the paralysis of two equal parties with no tiebreaker. But it is a feature that she cannot modify, cannot renegotiate, and cannot remove. It begins on the wedding day. It applies to every impasse the marriage will encounter. It ends when the marriage ends. The Ordnung governs her household. When an Amish woman marries and establishes her own household, she does not make the decisions about how that household is organized and run. Those decisions were made before she was born by the church district's Ordnung, the unwritten code of conduct that specifies what is permitted and what is required in every aspect of Amish life. The Ordnung determines what technology may be present in her home and what technology is forbidden. It determines what her clothing looks like, what her children's clothing looks like, what her husband's clothing looks like. It determines the standards of her home's interior, no carpeting in some affiliations, no upholstered furniture in the most conservative ones, no electricity from the grid in virtually all old order communities. It determines when and where church services are held in the homes of community members on a rotating schedule, which means her home will host the entire church district several times a year, and the preparations for that hosting are her responsibility. The Ordnung is not a set of preferences that the couple negotiates together. It is not a framework that the wife can modify based on what she finds convenient or comfortable. It is the operating standard of the community, reviewed twice yearly by the church district's members and binding on every household within it. The new wife who enters her own home for the first time after the wedding enters a space that is governed not by her taste or her judgment, but by the community's collective standards, and her task is not to design the household, but to run it within those standards. The community is always present. The final rule of Amish marriage is not a single specific prohibition, but a structural feature of the community that shapes the entire experience of marriage within it. In Amish life, the community is always present, not physically in the house at every moment, but perpetually involved in the household's life in ways that have no equivalent in modern American domestic experience. The church district that worships in her home several times a year knows what her household looks like, whether the floors are swept, whether the kitchen is clean, whether the children are dressed correctly, whether the household is operating to the community's standards. The neighbors who assist during illness, who show up for canning season, who borrow tools and return them, who share news across the fence, they know the household's daily rhythms, its challenges, its strengths. The deacon who manages the church's financial affairs has a relationship with her household that includes knowledge of its economic situation. The bishop who leads the church district has authority over every decision the household makes that touches on community standards. There is no separation between the public life of the marriage and the private life of the marriage in the way that modern households experience that separation. The marriage exists inside the community, not alongside it, not separate from it, but inside it, observed by it, supported by it, and accountable to it. The community's presence is not experienced as surveillance. It is experienced as belonging. But belonging and surveillance, in a community this interconnected, are not always easy to distinguish. 10 rules. The 10 rules described in this video are not a list of restrictions imposed on an unwilling person by an external authority. They are the natural outcomes of a commitment that the Amish wife made voluntarily not on her wedding day but earlier, at baptism, when she chose to join the church and accepted the Ordnung's authority over her life. The wedding did not create the rules. The wedding activated them in the specific context of marriage, gave them the particular shape they take in a household with a husband, with children, with a community that now looks to this specific household as one of its functioning units. The woman who kneels for baptism in her late teens and the woman who stands at her wedding a few years later are the same person making the same fundamental commitment twice, once to the church and once to the man who will be her partner within it. The rules that follow from both commitments are the same rules: no divorce, submission, no birth control, the white cap, staying home, no ring, no public affection. His word is the final word. The Ordnung as the household's governing standard. The community as the ever-present context within which all of it happens. These rules are hard. The title of this video uses that word deliberately. They are hard in the sense that they require sustained daily effort across a lifetime. They are hard in the sense that they do not accommodate personal preference or individual comfort when those things conflict with the community's standards. And they are hard in the sense that they do not end, not when the children grow up, not when the household settles into its rhythms, not when the couple grows old together. They end when she does.